What if I told you that behind this peaceful beachfront yoga retreat in Hawaii hides one of the most manipulative, surreal, and seductive cults that you've probably never heard of? A place where followers give up their families, identities, in some cases, even their virginity, for a man in a Speedo named The Teacher. This is the story of Buddhafield, and the man behind it all, Jaime Gomez.
We used to joke, even in the early days, if this was a cult, at least it was a really good cult.
Can't say no. No is against the rules.
Everything he did was a manipulation for some narcissistic, maniacal end.
Jaime Gomez was born in Venezuela. Like many dreamers, he headed to Hollywood in search of fame and stardom. His claim to fame in the acting space was this blink and you miss it role in Rosemary Baby, and because he didn't find that much success in the acting space, he ended up moving to Oakland and became part of the Oakland Ballet, and then he even starred in some gay adult films. It seemed that the fame that he wanted so badly never really stuck, but attention? That he would find another way to get. In the late 70s, he started teaching acting in a studio in Florida. But those lessons got weird really fast. Former students say that it wasn't long before acting turned into sermons about energy, God, and spiritual awakening. I think he soon realized that he was having more success kind of channeling that spiritual side of him than the acting side of him, so when he moved back to LA, he really reinvented himself. He was no longer just Jaime, now he was Michel, a self-proclaimed enlightened being who claimed to transmit divine energy, Shakti, by physical touch. He wore thongs and Speedos as his attire, and he soon gathered a growing group of devoted followers. This was the birth of Buddhafield. To outsiders, it just kind of looked like a wellness group. Meditation, yoga, celibacy, and community service, but inside the rules were suffocating. No sex, no drugs, no alcohol, no speaking to family, and no questioning the teacher, which is what they called him. Oh, and no saying the word cult. That would get you exiled immediately. Buddhafield operated like an isolated island. Physically and psychologically, followers were renamed and they were cut off from the outside world and subjected to weekly cleansing sessions. Hypnotherapy rituals where they were encouraged to reveal their deepest traumas. What they didn't know at the time was that these sessions were recorded and would be used later to manipulate them. Buddhafield was known as the sexiest cult and the cult full of beautiful people, and Jaime really took pride in that and had strict regimens for the people that were part of his group. I think I read somewhere that he had members exercise up to 3 hours a day, and they weren't allowed to have caffeine or chocolate or dairy or alcohol, or it would just seem very strict. The weirdest part about this obsession he had with his appearance and his group's appearance had to do with plastic surgery. He would have his followers get plastic surgery, but he would have them get the procedures that he wanted himself as well. So he could kind of vet it on them first to see if it looked good on them before deciding if he wanted to get it himself. So like cheek implants, he'd have members get the cheek implants so he could look at them and be like, okay, yes, that looks good, I want that for me. Or no, actually that doesn't look good, I don't want that for me. He got his lips done, he got a secret nose job, and he wore heavy makeup daily. One follower described him as having the confidence of Marilyn Monroe, the way he stared into the camera and commanded attention. After the Waco massacre in 1993, where the US government besieged a religious cult in Texas, paranoia in these fringe cults truly grew to another level. Jaime panicked, and without warning, he ordered the entire group to pack up and flee to Austin, Texas. But there, the isolation grew even worse. Followers were forbidden from watching TV, reading books, or dating, and one of his major obsessions was having them practice ballet for hours every single day because of his past being a ballet dancer. But these people in the cult weren't ballet dancers, and he would stress and make them practice for so long every single day to put on this big performance at the end for other members of the cult. This was crazy to read, but he even had them build this elaborate theater from the ground up in Austin, Texas to have these ballet performances, I guess. It's so interesting because I found this clip of Joe Rogan talking about this, and he actually had bought this theater and turned it into his comedy club.
Did you know that the building that I bought for my comedy club initially was owned by a cult?
Fantastic.
It was owned by a cult from West Hollywood called the Buddhafield.
Regardless, Jaime was just cherished amongst the cult members, and nobody really questioned it until someone pressed record. Have you ever Googled your own name and email? I did recently, and what I found freaked me out. Pages and pages of my info just kind of floating out there. Addresses, phone numbers, even relatives, all on these shady data broker sites. That's where today's sponsor, Aura, comes in. If you've ever wondered how scammers get your number, or why your inbox is full of spam, this is why. Data brokers are selling your information without your permission to marketers, robocallers, even stalkers. Aura is an all all-in-one digital security tool that automatically removes your personal information from these sites. And they keep it off. Plus, Aura monitors your accounts, alerts you if your info hits the dark web, and even comes with a secure VPN, password manager, antivirus, and $5 million in identity theft insurance. It honestly made me feel violated that my data was being bought and sold. That's why I choose Aura, and I recommend it to you. Try it free for 14 days at www.aura.com/MattCullen. You will be shocked at what you find. Thank you again to Aura, and now back to the video.
I am in you. But in truth, there's no I, there's no you. Oh, come.
Will Allen joined Buddhafield in 1985. He was fresh out of film school and seeking some sort of spiritual guidance, and he was actually recruited by his sister. He ended up staying for over 20 years and eventually became Jaime's personal videographer. He captured everything: rituals, beach cleanses, ballets, private conversations. And when he finally escaped in the mid-2000s, he used that footage to create the documentary Holy Hell, a haunting insider's look at life inside of a cult. But what pushed him to leave? An email sent by a former member. It revealed disturbing allegations. He lied about his past, his training. It accused him of tax evasion, and worst of all, being a serial sexual predator. Jaime had allegedly sexually abused multiple men in the group, and many were virgins. Many were manipulated into believing the abuse was a divine act of healing. One guy in the documentary said angrily, quote, "I thought I was doing spiritual work, and then he started saying, 'Come closer to me,' and I was in front of him on my knees." And remember that all of this happened during the height of the AIDS epidemic in the 1980s and 90s, a time when fear and misinformation was everywhere, especially in queer communities. I mean, gay men were dying in staggering numbers, and many lived with constant anxiety about infection or shame and stigma, and Jaime truly weaponized that. He told his followers that AIDS could be created by fear alone. He insisted that no one get tested for HIV, telling his followers that even getting tested could manifest disease, and that fear could cause illness. It was a lie designed to protect one person, Jaime, because he refused to get tested himself. And by keeping his followers celibate and untested, he could maintain a pool of young, untouched men that were, in his eyes, safe. What began as private spiritual sessions eventually turned into coerced sexual acts. One man had said that Jaime had kept him a virgin for 20 years before taking his virginity, without a condom, under the guise of divine connection. He believed it was an honor at the time, but it was calculated, premeditated, and masked as love. But in reality, it was really about dominance and control. These spiritual teachings were a smokescreen for systematic sexual exploitation, rooted truly in power, not in enlightenment. After Holy Hell premiered in Sundance in 2016, the group, well, what remained of it, relocated again, but this time to Kailua, Hawaii, right next to Lanikai Beach. And shockingly, they're still there. I actually came across this Facebook post on a group called My Kailua, where someone warned the group about their experiences with this man, because he's still practicing. And someone commented back saying, "Wow, WTF, just yesterday someone suggested I do yoga there." And someone replied saying, "LOL, I've been doing yoga there for over a year. I haven't noticed anything but kind people. This is the dumbest thing I've read all day." The documentary sparked a ton of outrage on the island. One cast member who had left the cult and spoke in the documentary about their experiences was allegedly attacked in Hawaii afterwards. And it was later revealed that the man who attacked him was actually Jaime's bodyguard. As of now, Jaime Gomez has never been criminally charged or convicted in connection with any of the allegations made by the former members of Buddhafield. Actually, at the end of the documentary, Will, the guy who made the documentary, goes to visit him on the beach, and it's this very uncomfortable scene. He continues to live and practice in Hawaii, where some of the groups still exist today. The accounts in this video are based on survivor testimony, public interviews, and the 2016 documentary Holy Hell. He released a vague, deflective statement denying everything. Quote, "Holy Hell is a work of fiction designed to create drama, fear, and persecution. I am saddened by this attempt to obscure the message of universal love." It's so interesting always to read about cults, because when you're not in one and you read about them, it's kind of like, how did somebody find themselves so deeply entrenched, in something like this and giving over their life to someone? But I can imagine that it's so much more complicated than it sounds, and that when you're in it, it's almost like you don't realize what's happening until you're so far deep inside of it that you're almost stuck. And it really scares me. To all the people who spoke out in the documentary and risked, their safety by doing so, I really thank you, because I feel like it's going to wake more people up than you would think. You know, maybe not just people in the Buddhafield cult, but in cults around the world, if they watch a documentary like this, they could realize what they're getting themselves into before it's too late. I hope you enjoyed today's video. To be honest, I've been so entrenched in the story and watching the documentary that I figured I'd make a video about it, and I hope that you found it interesting as well. And thank you so much for watching. I hope you're doing well yourselves, and I will see you very, very soon with another video. Okay, bye-bye.